Hi everyone, welcome back. We are now in part 4. So for part 4, what we're going to do is we're going to build the arms. Very similar process to building the legs, but obviously we're sort of going to be working in a different axis, a different direction, a different viewport. Let's take a look at the structure of the arms that we're going to kind of replicate here. Now, the arms will be more fiddly in regards to orienting the fingers properly. And we might run into, because we're going to have to use a similar process to what I did in the last video fixing the toe, it might be very fiddly because obviously the software didn't seem to be using those options very well for me before. I'm going to try and do it, but if not, we might just kind of leave that bit. If it's causing too many problems, we might be able to fix it up down the track. Okay, so what we're going to do is build a shoulder, we're going to build an elbow and a wrist. We are then going to build a hand joint just here. And what we're going to do is build one finger. We're then going to duplicate that finger set and create the other two fingers plus the thumb. We then need to make sure that the thumb is oriented correctly. And the thumb is going to be the main one that's going to cause us issues because the thumb is kind of on a 45-degree angle down, but it's also kind of on a 45-degree angle this way as well. So the thumb has a very different orientation to the rest of the joints. We also need to make sure that when we select all the joints of the fingers and all the joints of the thumb actually, when we rotate them, the thumb is sort of kind of almost flipped upside down. So when these fingers kind of curl down this way, the thumb actually curls up. So you get a gripping effect. If we don't do that, the thumb's going to kind of bend out backwards or go sideways. So those are some of the things that we need to take into consideration during this following process. I want to try and get through this one really quick if I can, only because the last one we got a little bit stuck, obviously. I didn't want to edit out all the problems, so that way you could see the problem solving. Okay, so let's jump into the front view again. And we'll use the same process as we did earlier on. Once again, I'm going to do the character's left arm, which is this one. Okay, don't forget in this view, the front view, the character is looking at us. And so this is the character's left arm, even though it's on the right-hand side of our viewport. Okay, so it's this one here. All right, so once again, I'm going to place a joint in the front view, just here. Yeah, I'm going to do the shoulder joint just here, and then what I'm going to do is jump up into the top view and draw them in the top view. Okay, so let's grab the joint tool, and then let's zoom in on the front view. And what I want to do is place a joint just on the edge of the body, right in the middle of the arm, just there. Tap the space bar, go to the top view, tap the space bar again. And once again, I'm going to switch on Joint X-Ray. I'm going to switch on Object X-Ray. And I'm also going to switch on Wireframe on Shaded, like that. I can see here that this joint is a little bit forward of the midpoint of the arm. And that's because it's actually sitting right on the axis, the X-axis here. The tool is still active, so I can middle mouse click and drag and reposition the joint. So all I want to do is sort of just reposition it so it's just on the edge of the body of the can and right in the middle of the arm, as close as you can get it. Then we're going to click a joint in the elbow. Once again, this works like the knee. If the arm was straight, I would place the joint towards the pointy bit of the elbow, so towards the back half of the elbow, rather than right in the middle. And that's just to help the joints know which direction the elbow bends. Because this is already pre-bent, I'm going to pop it right in the middle. So right in here, like that. And then down on the wrist. And once again, the wrist, I'm going to pop it just here, like this. Okay. This edge here is actually, technically speaking, when you unsmooth the character, about here. Because this is smooth, it ends up sort of sliding up the arm a bit. So this is, technically speaking, this edge here is where the joint would be. I'm then going to place one right in the middle of the hand, about here. Doesn't matter if it's on a line or not. I know that this is the middle line of the hand going this way, but it doesn't have to be on any of these particular lines here. This hand section doesn't bend, it's only the fingers that do. So, you know, I could probably pop it about here like this. Now, this is where it's going to get complicated because the radius of the joints is ridiculously large for this model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click 3 joints for the fingers, or 4 joints for the fingers, I should say. And then what I'm going to do is adjust the radius of them, and then I'm going to duplicate them. So the first joint's going to go here on this edge, just here. Now, I don't have like proper human knuckles on these, so these fingers are going to bend a bit like sort of like a banana bend. They're going to be curved without the sharp joints on the knuckles. So what I want to do is basically just click 1 joint on each of these lines, these you know, these edges that run across, and then 1 on the fingertip. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see that they're absolutely massive. They're way too big. Okay. Now I'm going to click another one just off the end. Okay. Once again, this is, you can see that this last one I clicked is lined up with the grid. It's not lining up with the angle. So I'm just going to kind of follow this middle line out beyond the finger and then click again. And this one then realigns to that. Okay. Now I'm going to turn the tool off. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come across to the channel box and I'm going to change this radius value. I want to drop it down about half of what it is. So I'm going to drop it down to 0.25. And you can see it only changes the joint that's selected, okay, which is this one. So I want to change all of them all at once. So what we could try doing is right clicking on that joint and coming down to select hierarchy. That'll select each joint individually. The last joint being selected is the green one. Then what I can do is change this number here to 0.25 and it will change all of them at the same time. Now, I'm thinking that those joints in the fingers are still too big. So what I'm going to do is select this finger joint, right click and hold on it, and then come down to select hierarchy again. This time it only selects the finger, so it only selects from where you right clicked. Okay. And then I'm going to drop this one down to maybe 0.15. And that's a lot better. I could even go 0.1. That might be, yeah, 0.1's probably better. Okay. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to select this knuckle here. And I'm going to duplicate this one. But I think before I do that, I'm going to actually rename these. And the reason for that is that there's going to be a lot of renaming in the fingers because there's so many joints. And I don't want to have to retype absolutely everything out every time. So let's go back to the shoulder and let's start renaming what we've got so far. Okay, I'm going to start here. I'm going to shift click the joint out so that I've got my hierarchy. And I'm going to call this shoulder. Space, left, because it's the left arm, space, joint, J-N-T. Okay, I'm then going to highlight the space left space joint. Command C or Control C to copy that, and then just hit Enter to lock that in. Next one down, that's going to be the elbow. Yep. Have to remember to paste in the left joint. This one's going to be wrist. Don't forget to paste left joint. And this one's going to be the hand. Paste left joint. So shoulder left joint, elbow left joint, wrist left joint, hand left joint. Okay, this is where it gets fun. And by fun, I mean this is where it gets kind of crazy. We need to name each of these. And generally speaking, we have to give a name to each finger so we know which finger we're talking about. Okay. So normally what we do is call this little finger, or a lot of riggers might call this pinky, depending on the part of the world you're from. A lot of the American riggers will call this a pinky. This one would normally be the on a 3-fingered character. This is either going to be maybe the ring finger. This is going to be the index finger or the pointer. and obviously the thumb. Okay, so we're going to name them in those fashions, right? So what I'm going to do is call this little. Then we're going to say left, LFT. Yep. Okay, and then we're going to call it 0, 1, and then JNT. Okay, so it's the little finger on the left hand side, it's knuckle 1 or joint 1, and it's a joint. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is copy all of that, okay, and then go down to the next joint. I'm going to paste it in, and this is joint 2, so all I do is change that to 2, paste this one in, and change this to 3. And then paste this one in. And normally what I do is, with this one, I call it tip. So I know it's the end joint. Don't forget, this one up here is going to get deleted, so I don't need to worry about that just yet. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to select this one, and we're going to copy it. Now, I'm not going to use copy-paste, because we don't do that with our models. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Edit, Duplicate, like that. I'm going to switch on the Move tool, and then I'm going to move this down. And you can see what it does is it basically duplicates that chain, but it creates the new duplicate connected to the hand already. You can see here it's connected, which is great. And that's less messing around for us to do. So now we use the Move tool, and we just move each joint into position, just like we've done before. Once again, we're wanting to try and get these in the middle of the finger. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, as long as it's pretty close, that'll be fine. Okay, so this is one of those instances where we're going to have to reorient these joints so that they're kind of going in the right direction. Okay, now with these, obviously, because I've duplicated some joints, they're now showing up down here, so I need to expand that out. And now what I need to do is rename these with a new finger name. I've already got the numbers, and I've already got the left hand side, and I've already got the joint, and you can see there it's actually named, put a 1 on the end of this, but it's not the little finger, it's the middle finger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. I'm going to select the word little, and I'm going to change this to mid, and copy that, and then delete this 1 at the end, and then go down to the next one, and then just paste the word mid over the top of little. Like that. And then I just need to double check that they're correct. So middle left 1, middle left 2, middle left 3, and then middle left tip. That's fine. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing, this time with the forefinger. So we're going to duplicate it, edit, duplicate, move it down, reposition the joints. Don't forget, I'm not rotating them, I'm moving them with the Move tool. Do not rotate them. That will cause problems down the track for you. About there. And then this one about there. So all I'm doing is positioning this so that the line here, this line, kind of continues on from the line down the middle of the finger. Okay, let's rename those. So let's shift click that. And what we need to do is take out the, whoops, we need to get rid of, oh, what did I just do? I think I accidentally just parented that. Okay, so I've just hit undo. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah, occasionally you might hit a keyboard shortcut by accident when you're moving around the keyboard. Okie dokie. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rename these just like I did with the other ones. So I've got little finger, mid finger. This one's going to be index or forefinger. I'm going to call this 4. Copy that. Get rid of the 1 at the end of that name. And now we go down and just remove the word mid and paste the word 4 or pointer or whatever you want to call that finger. Index finger, for example. Okay. And the final one is the thumb. So I'm going to select the finger here again. I'm going to duplicate it again. So I'll just use Command D to duplicate that, and I'm going to bring this back across. Now this is tricky. The positioning of this is tricky. So I'm just going to bring this across. What I'm doing here is I'm looking at this ring, this circular edge here, this loop, and I'm placing the joint in the middle of that. This joint's going to be way higher up in space than where that thumb is, but if I position it here in the middle of that, all I have to do then is move it down in the side view or the front view. Same thing here. This one here is being positioned sort of in the middle of where the thumb joins the hand, sort of this loop here. And then this one here is going to get placed sort of in the middle of the tip of the thumb. And I'm just lining that up basically just there. This one here is also going to get moved forwards like this, so it's lining up with these. This one here I'm going to delete. And the reason for that is that there's one less joint in the thumb, so I don't need the fourth one, I only need the third one. So this is basically going to be the one that gets deleted at the end. So let's rename these. So I'm just going to expand those out. Let's pop back up to the top one here. And this one's going to be thumb. So this first one here is going to be thumb, joint, the thumb left 1, joint, and so on and so forth. So let's get rid of 4. Let's type in thumb and copy that. Let's get rid of the 1 at the end of that first name. And then let's go in and name these just by pasting over the top of the 4 indicator. There we go. So I've got thumb left 1, thumb left 2, thumb left 3, and then the thumb tip. That's going to get removed eventually, and what I will do is replace the thumb 3 with the tip name later on when I get rid of this one. Once again, this is only here for orientation of this joint. Okay, so to begin with, what we're going to do now is tap the space bar and go into the front view like this. And what we're going to do is we need to move these joints down so that they're actually following the curve of the fingers. And I'm going to be selecting them from sort of over here and working my way down the list and just making sure that they're sort of okay. So I'm going to start off with the little finger. Basically what we need to do is make sure that they're in the middle of the geometry. Instead of poking out like this, they need to follow this curve. So the first one should be okay over here for the fingers. Okay, the second one is going to get moved down a little bit. And technically speaking, I could probably hold down Control or Command and select the other 2 fingers. Okay, so joint 2, and joint 2, like this. So what we're getting up here is those ones selected. Okay, what I can do there is move them all down at the same time, because they're all going to be, the fingers are level on the model, so I can make the joints level as well. So then I'll go 3 by itself, Command or Control 3, Command and Control 3. I'm ignoring the thumb for now because the thumb is a different matter. Okay, about there. And then the tip on those 3 fingers, move that down. And then finally the joint 9 on those 3 fingers, and move that down. And that's once again just so that the finger tip is sort of pointing in the right direction. Okay, now we've got to do the thumb. So over in the side view, so I'm going to move the thumb down here a little bit. Remember before I was saying that this main thumb joint actually sits in the middle of sort of where the thumb joins the hand. If I put my cursor over here in the perspective and press F, and then go back to show and switch polygons back on, I can get an idea of where it is. Once again, I will need to switch on my X-ray, and I'm also going to switch on wireframe on shaded as well. And depending on which angle I view it at, I can kind of see if the thumb's in the middle of the object, like that. Now, technically speaking, this snap option here, snap to projected center, technically should allow me to snap the joint to the middle of the thumb. I haven't tried it with this particular process, so I don't know how good it is. And I don't necessarily want to, spend time messing around with that while I'm recording. But if you're kind of comfortable with these processes by now, you can try and center these in the middle of the thumb by using this snap to projected center option. It might speed the process up. I don't know though whether or not it'll actually rotate your joints. It shouldn't do because you'll be using the move tool. But all I'm doing here is just manually doing this. So I'm just moving them down and then just check it from a couple of different angles to make sure that the joints are actually close to the middle. So I can see here, for instance, that I need to go up a little bit. So that way the joints are running down this middle line in the geometry. And then just double check it from a few different angles. If you press F here, it'll zoom in on that. And then you can just spin around a little bit more easily. And then grab that last one and kind of move that down as well. So any angle that you look at it from, they should kind of, from the back of the thumb here, where we're looking, that would be where the thumbnail is. They're kind of in a line there. And then on this side, you can kind of see where they are. So they're more or less lined up. They're pretty good. Okay, so now what we need to do is orient the joints for the whole hand, and then we're going to have to fix up the thumb, and then we get rid of the end ones. Okay, so back up to the shoulder. We're going to go back to skeleton, orient joint. I'm going to go into the options for now, because I am going to switch the local rotation axis on in a minute. But by default, what I want to do is just apply this. Right, that's going to tweak some of the fingers down here. And if we have a quick look now, just to double check that they're all pointing the same way. So you can see here, we've got blue down, red forward, blue down, red forward. All the blues are down. All the blues are down there. All the blues are down there. So at the moment, all the fingers seem to be lined up. As I said, we will need to fix the thumbs because they need to be reversed. Okay, so these ones all seem pretty cool. We can test them by shift selecting each joint in each finger without, obviously we don't need to do the very last joint. And if we rotate them, they'll all rotate the same way. And if we kind of look at it from this angle, I can see that they're all kind of rotating or curling straight. I don't have any of them kind of going tragically sort of sideways or anything like that. Nothing's too drastic, you know, they're kind of curling quite nicely. Okay. Now don't forget, if you do a test rotation like that, press undo until they go back to where they were. Don't just deselect them and leave them bent, because that might cause problems later on down the track if you kind of lock them in that position. So always sort of undo. If you're testing the rotation like this, just hit undo to get them back to where they were. Okay, so let's have a look at what happens if I also shift select the thumb, in fact only 2 thumb joints. I don't need the end one. Those end ones there, don't really need them. Yeah, that'll do. So let's watch what happens, right? What I was doing there was rotating the y-axis, okay, which is this yellow one that I've got active. So you can see there when I try and make a fist, the thumb bends backwards. That's the reason why we need to reverse or adjust the local rotation axis for the thumb. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift select these 3 axes, right? And if I have a look at them at the moment, you can see that they are lined up with one another. We've got red pointing down the chain. We've got blue pointing backwards towards the back of the thumb, up here. And then the y-axis is sort of almost pointing at the side of the thumb here. What we need it to do is we need the blue to be pointing inwards this way. Okay, and currently it's pointing outwards. So basically we need to spin the local rotation axis 180 degrees so that the blue lines, these oops, these blue lines on the thumb need to point towards this side, like inside here. Okay, now you can see that they're not quite lined up. They're on a weird 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to do this manually. I'm not going to worry about, making the rotation tool snap or anything. That was causing problems earlier. Okay, so I'm going to select these. I'm going to hit toggle local rotation axes. Now, what I can do is shift select these ones and click it, and it'll bring them, all three of them up like this. I'm going to turn this tool panel off. That's just a nice handy spot to have the that button. Okay, so this is what was causing issues earlier. What we need to do is... Hi everyone, Simon here. Sorry for interrupting your tutorial. At this point in the tutorial, I discovered that Maya has a bug which stops us from being able to properly select our local rotation axes. You did see that happen to me in when I was trying to adjust the toe joint earlier on. I've done some research. I've found a workaround that someone's posted online, and so what I'm going to do here is insert a video showing you how to create the tool which lets you select your local rotation axes. So we're going to cut to that now, and then when that's finished, we're going to come back to this point where we will continue on with this process. Hi everybody, I thought I'd just bring this to your attention. Obviously in the last couple of videos you've noticed that there's been an issue with Maya 2018 and being able to select the rotation axes to actually edit your rotation directions of your joints. I've done a bit of research and I've come across a solution to the problem, which has been provided by another person that had the same issue. There is a massive number of people that are having this issue. It's absolutely a problem with Maya 2018, and it has actually been a problem before in previous versions. I think back in about Maya 2013 they had the same issue, fixed it, and then subsequently in Maya 2018 they've broken it again. I'm not sure if it's still a problem in Maya 2019. Apparently they've fixed it in a couple of the point updates. But you can see here what the issue is where we're trying to select these rotation axes. You can see that this one's selected. Okay, apparently there is an invisible point somewhere near the joints, and when you select across that point, it actually does select it. So you can see there he's dragging here, and it actually selected this one. So there is some arbitrary invisible point apparently for each joint. So a bit further down, I just want to show this so that I'm kind of showing who has posted this. So this is their selection. So what we do basically is we select the object, we switch on the display transform, display local rotation axes. That's what I was doing. Make sure that we've got the joint selected. You'd have to select the joint first in order to do this. So select the joint, do this, and then basically what we do is we run this little script as a button on the shelf. So I'm going to show you how to do this. I've just tested it and it works okay. And what this does is basically when you've got the joint selected and the axes are visible, this script will tell it to select the axis for that selected joint, and that way it activates and then you can rotate it. But it only works one joint at a time, unfortunately, but it still does function from what I've just tried. So let's jump into Maya really quick and let's take a look at how that works. Okay, I've actually just done it to fix these hands, so it does work. But what we need to do basically is copy and paste this little script here. So I'm just going to highlight that, or select it and copy it, Control or Command C. Then we're going to open up the script editor right down in the very bottom corner, just here. And if we come down into the Mel tab at the bottom here and paste this in, I've got it pasted just here, and I've done a couple of double forward slashes just to kind of separate it out from this other script that I've got, which is I think randomizing rotations on things. Ignore all this. What we're interested in is this bit here. So I've just pasted this in. Okay. Then what we do is we highlight it like this, and then what we do is we come up to this button just here, okay, which is Save Script to Shelf. So it's a little shelf icon with a little disk at the top. Okay, so what we do is we click this, and it'll pop up a little name, enter name, and so what I've done is called it cell for select, local rotation axis, LRA. So cell, LRA, cell RA, okay, like that, and then just press OK, and it'll add it as a button just up here. Then you can turn this panel off. Okay, so now what we do is we come down to the thumb like this, or any joint that you want. You can see I've already done this. Okay, see how the axes are pointing sort of in towards the hand, the blue axes. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and undo that if I can. Let me see if I can undo it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's where we were. That's where I was. Okay, so what we do is we select a joint. Now we can select all three joints by shift selecting them, and then we come up to Display, Transform Display, Local Rotation Axes. Now what I've done is added that as a button just here. Okay, and to do that, you go Transform Local Rotation Axes, hold down Shift. On a PC it's Shift and Control. On a Mac it might be Shift Command now. They did change it. I think it's Shift Command now on a Mac. So you click that and it adds it up here. So LRA is Local Rotation Axes. Okay. Now obviously I've got duplicates here, so I'm going to clean those up later on. Right. So what we do, select the joints, click on LRA, and it will highlight the local rotation axes like this. Now you can see, once again, it's not updating this properly. It's actually showing my local rotation axes already set up for me having fixed them, even though I can see that the angle of these joints is pointing back where they were originally. This software drives me crazy. All right, so I've got those there. Now what I'm going to do is select one joint, okay, like this, and then I'm going to press the select local rotation axis like that, and you can see that it switches over to a component mode and it selects the axis, so it's yellow. Then when I grab the rotate tool, I can rotate that around, and what I want to do is rotate it around so that the Z axis just here is pointing sort of towards it sort of needs to point sort of this way, up along the hand, this way. Okay. And we just repeat that for each one. So select the next joint, press the select LRA. You can see now that the display is actually updated and it's actually fixing it. Now, the rotation that you're selecting is not this outer ring. It's this ring here, which is, in this case, the x-axis. And we're spinning this around. So it would be the red handle. So we're just spinning that around and lining that up. And I'm looking at the end of the thumb so I can line this one up with the previous one, because I can see the two little Z's there. And then we grab the last one, select LRA, and then we spin that one around as well. Okay, that's it. So then what we do is deselect, and then just select each joint by holding Shift, and then press LRA just to switch those rotation axes off. And now you'll see when you select them, the blue arrows are pointing in towards the hands. These blue arrows will be pointing down. So when you hold down Shift and you select all your joints, and then you grab rotation, and you rotate the green handle, the green y-axis, you can see that those these ones here will kind of curl in. But I don't know if I had those selected. Yeah, there we go. So you can see now that the thumb curls in towards the hand and those fingers come down. So you can kind of make it like a fist. Okay, so there's the fix. Once you're happy with that, select the joints on the fingertips and delete them. And then what we're going to do is mirror the arm. So I'm going to select the arm, and we're going to go up to the skeleton, down to mirror joints, go into the options and just double check. We've still got our same options as last time. Once again, we need behavior. So with the arms, what we'll get is when it mirrors and we rotate, select both shoulders and rotate them, it'll do like a wing flap. And that's working fine. So what we're going to do is apply the behavior and these settings. For this, what I'm going to do is very quickly show you what happens with orientation. Okay, so don't do orientation. I'm going to show you what happens. So when you hit apply and you've got orientation active, when you select the joints and you rotate them, see they go opposite directions like this. Okay, that's no good. All right, what we need, I'm going to undo that. Get back to there. Yep. So that's why we need behavior. So when we do behavior, we get a wing flap like this. This is exactly what we need. Okay. So YZ for the mirror across, function, behavior, and then search for left, replace with right. Like that. Okay. And you can see that the joints down here have renamed. So now we've got shoulder right joint, elbow right joint, and so on. Okay. What we're going to do is, what we can do is, let me just switch back to full solid mode with 5, if you're in wireframe or another mode. I'm going to X-ray it, and I'm going to switch off the wireframe on shaded, just so I can see the model and the joints. What we're going to do is connect these up. So I'm going to select both hips by holding shift and selecting them. And then I'm going to shift select the pelvis and press P. And what that'll do is it will parent both legs onto the spine. Now you'll notice when you do that, the spine orientation has stayed where it is. Okay, so it's straight up, running up the spine again. Okay, that's important. Occasionally you might find that if you're doing a bunch of processes where you're connecting things to the spine and so on, you might find that the spine rotation changes and ends up pointing down one of the legs. So it's important that you double check that that's actually, still lined up. If it isn't, what you can do is unparent the legs and then just reorient the pelvis. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the arms. I'm going to select the arms at the shoulders, and I'm going to shift select the body joint, and I'm going to press P to parent, or you can go to edit, parent, and that's going to connect those in like that. Okay, so now when you select the root joint here in the middle, the pelvis, you can see it selects the entire skeleton. So that's how we build our skeleton, spine, legs, and arms. Everything's all renamed. I'm going to turn off my sample joints layer because we don't really need that now. And that's it for this video. Don't forget to save. I will see you again soon.